No, I'm not. I'm advocating for her. But her caseworker is not, I guess, can show up, is that correct? There's been a lot of miscommunication between that side and April. There's been a lot of malfeasance going on in regards to that. So I'm here to just make sure that, she's okay with what's going on, yeah.
And what's your name?
Thomas?
Okay.
Sleeping Derby's car because the tires was dry.
Yeah. So when did you find out about this? Just yesterday?
No, I just found out today.
Wow.
An hour ago.
Wow. And then the other appointment is at 3?
And then I have 2:45.
Okay. And that's going to be...
Up at the ordinance city.
Okay. And will Renee be at that one?
Huh?
Will Renee be at that one? Okay, good. I'd like to talk to her. Pardon?
Dr. Lee.
Hi, Dr.
Come on back.
Dr. Lee, I'm Thomas.
Hi.
I'm here advocating with for April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I understand.
Matter of fact, you just found out about this an hour ago.
We just found out about this an hour ago.
Yes, that's the way it's going.
That's
It's not appropriate, it's not
terribly good.
It's not professional.
Okay.
It's not for you, I'm not,
That's more like late because like I went into the swimming pool and then.
Just let you know. Okay. We'll go through this. If you have any questions, just let me know, and I'll do my best to answer them. Sound good? So let's see. So going through the evaluation. So what I'll do is I'll first address. Yeah.
These workers here.
Okay.
sit this down a minute. I should, by you?
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, Tony. Hello.
Renee,
Oh.
Renee, I'm Thomas.
nice to meet
We
you.
have not yet met.
Okay,
Would you like to sit next to the doctor?
are you with Stephanie?
No, I'm with April.
Oh, her, oh, okay,
I'm just advocating for her because.
are you her brother?
No.
You're living with her right now. Okay, well, if she has, if you have April's permission.
Yes.
I will, Stephanie has a cold, so she did not come.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want me to wear a mask, I'm vaccinated, but I'll do whatever is more.
Well, nobody else wears a mask, so
Yeah,
do you
so
really
then
want to
I will take it off because I
Okay.
be on the caution. So we're just giving Stephanie a call. The biggest thing, Thomas, that I'd ask is that this is really focused on April, so not to, yeah, and it's good. I think it's excellent to have someone else, any kind of appointment to kind of hear the same thing, but, okay, I'm trying to get Stephanie's phone number. You have it. Okay. We're on the phone. And I did print out a copy for April to look at. I mean, I know it's a lot, I know it's a lot of words. And what's the best way to handle it?
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi Stephanie, this is Renee, and April is here at Dr. Moore's office, Dr. Lee's
Lee.
office.
Okay. We all ready? Okay, so we were just going through the evaluations. We were just starting. So I'll start with the diagnoses. There's two things with diagnoses, April, that typically could change a diagnosis.
What does that mean?
So I'll provide a diagnosis, but typically there's two reasons why a diagnosis might change. One is that I just get information that suggests the diagnosis is incorrect or something else should be considered, okay? The other is that you, through treatment or time or whatever, that you just don't meet the diagnostic criteria anymore.
What does that mean?
So let's say, for example, like, just because somebody has depression doesn't mean they'll have depression forever, right? And so they have depression, they go through treatment, and then they don't meet the criteria for depression anymore. So their diagnosis changed. Okay, we could see this. You could see this. I mean, it's something simple like a broken leg. You go in, you get it fixed, you come out. There's no more diagnosis of a broken leg, right? So in this situation, your situation, I diagnosed with what's called a provisional. And provisional means I don't have all the data, okay, but I believe you're experiencing it, okay? And so it's let's call it a softer diagnosis, okay? And so I had a provisional of ADHD combined type. And what that means is that you exhibit both symptoms of inattention, so it's difficult to maintain attention and focus, but it's also difficult for you.
What?
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Sorry, I apologize for not being on person. I'm having a hard time hearing. I'm having to concentrate very, very, very hard to catch every word.
Is that better?
Oh, that's so much better.
Okay, yeah, you're about 3 feet closer, so that's good. Okay. So, it means that you meet both the criteria for inattention and the kind of restlessness or hyperactivity. Okay, now the inattention, a lot of inattention stuff is what we consider internal symptoms. What we mean by that is difficult to maintain concentration, you miss, it's difficult to focus on details. There's attention or what we call executive functioning. So this is kind of a problem solving thing. Okay, we did, I don't know if you recall the testing that we did. We did the testing and we saw that your testing for executive function specifically was quite low. Right? That's a telltale sign of ADHD. Okay, so when you're sitting and you find that you feel like you're being focused and then all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, I haven't been focusing for 2 or 3 minutes or 4 minutes, I don't know what people are saying, all right? That is, a lot of people with ADHD describe that type of experience, okay? That's the attention shifting and it's difficult to shift. Okay?
Coming out of a daydream possibly. Right?
Yeah, it can be like that, but it's a bit more with a daydream. You might recognize that it's a daydream, whereas this inattention part would be one thing that people talk about is you're walking along and it's like, oh, there's a quarter, and then you focus on the quarter instead of.
I always been told like whenever I talk, I know that I'm kind of a random person because like I'll jump from one thing to the other, but that's just how I talk, kind of randomly, whatever pops in my head, I guess. But couldn't it also be maybe there's just a lot of things that are on my mind and stuff, like the stuff that's everything that's going on for me to be able not to concentrate as normally?
So that would be so there's certainly like a lot of stress that might be in your life or something that might contribute to that. The testing kind of gets through that a little bit, all right, and that we're focused on specific type of areas in which the concentration is. So I think you might be experiencing both, all right. You might have the challenge of attention and maintaining focus, but then you throw stress on that, and it's that much more difficult to maintain the focus and attention.
Well, couldn't medication take care of that?
Yes, actually, medication is quite effective in treating ADHD, and so that is helpful. You need to speak to like a psychiatrist or a primary care physician for that. But if you've heard of words like Adderall or Ritalin or something like that, that can help sometimes. Okay, it can help you focus and narrow it and control the attention stuff.
I don't know why I never been diagnosed as a child or anything like that. I only been diagnosed as having ADD, but never the other one.
It's the same.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So yeah.
It's
So
like the same thing.
yeah. So ADD, ADHD, it used to be referred to as ADD. And they added the hyperactivity part to it. And we saw that the hyperactivity, the kind of on the go, needing to fiddle. I see like your fingers, it's kind of like little fidgeting, those type of things. That's part of that hyperactivity. So your brain is like, I need to be stimulated, right? It's important to be stimulated. So ADHD, you're looking for that stimulation. And so if you
like, I love going to the beach like every single weekend. It's like I need to get down to the beach.
yeah, and then and I would even add, so while you're at the beach, right? It's like, I like this and I like this and I like the waves and I like birds and I like this and I like watching people and I like, so it's not just I want to be at the beach, but when you're at the beach,
Everything
you're
is
trying
like
to
extraordinary.
you're trying to take everything in, and sometimes that can get overwhelming, and sometimes that is
Like the rocks.
Yep, and so and then sometimes that can be quite exhilarating, right? Because you are
Because then I don't know
grasping
where.
for things.
Because like there's a secret island down at the Lincoln beach, and so when you go over like a whole bunch of rocks and stuff, there's just like a whole bunch of agates, and I don't even know where to start sometimes. I'll be like, wow, there's so many, I don't even know where to pick, like where I start, but then I choose an area and then I just start going and looking for them.
So, and then the, other part, so that was the only diagnosis. There was another, part that I didn't write about. This is called, what's called borderline intellectual functioning, okay? And what this means is that there are concepts, that may be difficult to understand. All right, now, the thing about this, and one of the, criteria, let's call it, okay, one of the things to consider is your ADHD, is the ADHD that you're experiencing impacting your ability to perform on the IQ test that you took? All right, and it could be, all right, and so it's very difficult to diagnose both of them, right? So it's just important to understand, I put this in here, I didn't diagnose you, it really is an ancillary type of, it's kind of, it's kept in the back of the book, it's kind of like, and it's something that when you're in treatment, the provider needs to understand, so that they're not, that would modify treatment, okay? So, rather than, let's say, for example, giving you a whole bunch of homework and having you read books or something like that, that would be counter treatment for you, would be good for you. Instead of doing that, it would be something maybe more behavioral, right? And so talking through it, practicing it, and certain things, which is exactly what I recommended, okay? I recommended, in terms of treatment and recommendations, I did think that.
Is that counseling like for, to take care of the disability or?
Yeah, so this would be kind of, one thing would be life skills counseling, okay? And this is really to develop the independent skills so that you can, maintain and your functional skills. So what I mean by functional skills is that, fairly, maybe simple things. How do you, if you get paid, how do you, balance a paycheck? Okay, where do you decide, where the money goes? Now nowadays we have these things that are kind of our external brains, all right? And so part of treatment might actually be you having a phone or something that does a lot of that for you. Okay, you get $500 in the bank account, 200 goes to rent automatically, $30 goes to whatever, baby food or something like that, $100 for food for the couple weeks, when you've got, I didn't do the math, but let's say 150 left over for whatever you want to do, all right? And so you can set that up, and that's really what that treatment should focus on. It should be very behavioral oriented, okay? So concrete practices, so an example of this, I give you an example, but so treatment would be, we're gonna teach April how to balance her paycheck, all right, or utilize her paycheck, all right, and so you literally walk through that, and then we have you practice that a couple of times.
I don't know why it hasn't, no one has teach me really much of budgeting. I don't understand why, my old worker teacher did not teach me any kind of budgeting like what she's supposed to be teaching me.
Yeah.
How to do over my years of my life.
Yep. So that's exactly why I'm recommending it. I think some of those basic skills would really, really help you out.
And I
Right.
just,
So I really do think that stuff would help you out, and that would make you more successful. Okay.
and I just been trying to learn, because I know that when I came in, I didn't know the math, the times and stuff, but now I can do it because I practiced them, and now I know how to do the times, the 2-digit math.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And before I couldn't, and that was because I was never taught that.
Yeah. So just some of that straightforward, some of the management and practice of that. The other thing I could recommend is that you just make sure that you maintain your relapse prevention program. All right, I think it's important that you maintain your sobriety and that you continue to attend that. The other thing is the parenting training. Now, I did recommend what's called in vivo parenting training. Now, in vivo means that it's in person. All right, I don't want you going to any classes. I don't want you to go to, you're certainly welcome to go to classes, right? But what classes are is you're sitting in a classroom, they teach you about child stuff and parenting, and then you leave and then you're supposed to apply it, right? I don't think that would be terribly beneficial, or you'll get a lot out of it. In vivo training is far more effective, especially for somebody like you, in which you learn doing the behaviors. And so what that means is maybe you're in your home or you're in the office and you're parenting your child. Maybe you're making your child dinner or lunch, or you're playing with your child, or you're getting your child ready to go outside. You have a coach there, and it says, okay, April, step one, let's just take, for example, you're getting your child ready to go outside. Well, step one is maybe you get your stuff on first, because we know as parents that as soon as
go.
yes, as soon as you get your stuff on and you're not ready to go, your kid's already gone.
Even as much as last night, she was researching that very thing. Those
There's this thing called the family room.
I haven't heard of anything.
It's in Portland, and it's they do actually it's called reunification coach.
Yeah.
spend 9 hours with your child.
Yeah, 9 hours a week with their child. Like I think they do in-home settings to teach you like what you're talking about, the life skills and about and they go through even actually I can't even refer myself. You would actually have to refer me because I couldn't. They say that only a CPS worker can only do it.
Yeah.
So that
One thing before we get going, is, so we do, and I just talked with, have, a parent support coach person now ready, can't remember her name, but I have her written down, and I talked to her, and one of the things she was asking, like, okay, so this is going to be, in person, and I think this family room would be something that maybe later on, closer reunification, that we would.
Oh, they show all the steps. They say that they show all the steps to so there's like all these steps that has to go through for it to become reunification.
Right.
Yeah.
I think so what I'm saying is not Xing that out, and we have a meeting a little bit later this afternoon, so for everybody to talk, which will be good. But step one is doing this, with the parent support thing. And one of the things that when I talked with her, she said, well, do you have a particular curriculum that you want to use?
Positive discipline.
If, and I don't know if, anything that you usually recommend for this kind of, or just kind of sit down and go through the things that she needs to work on, what might.
So this would be something that I think the best. Typically, the research shows that if it's a mutual agreement, you're most likely going to get the most out of treatment. And so it's not me just assigning you need to work on this parenting, you need to work on this parenting, you need to work on this parenting. Okay, it might be some specific areas that need to be focused on, but also what is it that you want to work on in terms of parenting.
Well,
Okay.
I want to know everything about parenting, like everything that I don't know.
Yeah, so that's important. So there's things that you don't know that I think another person could help let you know, but there's also things that you might know that you want to be better at. Alright, so an example might be like, gosh, when I'm cooking a meal, it's hard to like take care of my kid and watch the boiling water and how do I manage that kind of stuff, right?
You just get one of those things, and you don't have it in the kitchen at all because it's unsafe to have any kids in the kitchen. In fact, no kids are allowed to be in the kitchen.
Well,
That's
sure.
because the kids, there's hot stuff, there's slippery, it's just not safe. We were only allowed to be talking to our mom over like she's in the kitchen and we're right there standing like
Outside.
Yeah.
So that's certainly one way to address that, right? And so this is where that in-person training comes in, where you have some goals in treatment. There are other goals that are like, okay, do these look, but the key behind this is behavior development, right? So you say, okay, I want to increase, let's say, positive reinforcement. And so part of it might be getting at, so what does that mean? and then let's while you have your child with you, let's actually practice what positive reinforcement is. Okay, and so you literally are just practicing it and going through positive reinforcement.
And I know that, that you don't wanna usually say the word no to your child. You, like once the child gets older, if the child wants to go do something, it's like, yes, I know that you really wanna go do that, but I don't think that's like the best idea for you to go to the birthday party because tomorrow's school. You know, like what I mean, always put the yes in front of it to, understand the child's feelings about, like, yeah, I know you really wanna do that and stuff.
Yep, and that would be, yeah, so that would be something that it sounds like you already have that kind of concept down, and so
Like,
now.
I'm just like learning, like, because I've just been watching a lot of YouTube stuff on positive discipline, but that's about it, that I only got that with positive discipline and some milestones, but.
And so that's essentially what I'm recommending is this in vivo parenting training. And so it's taking that YouTube, but you're doing it with your child, and you have a personal kind of call it a coach. You have a coach that's saying, all right, April, all right, you see that you're, and with parent-child interaction therapy, you actually have like an earpiece in, and they're just talking to you through a microphone. And so they're even disconnected from it. And so they're saying, okay, now April, double check on your daughter or son, whatever.
Interesting.
Okay, so that would be the in vivo. And then the other thing is just make sure that you continue that your services, your disability services are up to date, and that maintain contact with the services and the payee. And one of the concerns I had is I think we were asking you about the payee and how that's managed, and I didn't think you had a good understanding of who it was or how it was managed.
Now I have, my friend Billy, he's my payee now.
Okay.
So I got that.
Good. So it'd just be important for you to maintain that type of contact and know where the money's going in. So even though the payee is managing some of that, you have what's called an accounting. Like you get a receipt. So if Billy says, hey, we need to pay $200 for your rent. All right, he's breaking it down. Look, disability gave you $500. This is where every single penny is going, and this is why you have this much in your account. And so we want to make sure that you have that accounting there. Okay. Those were the main things that I was focusing on in terms of the interventions and remediating some of the concerns. So that's the recommendations, the diagnosis. If there's any other information you'd like me to go over.
I have a couple of things that might be helpful, but if you want to ask a question first, you go first.
Like just later on in my life, like it could be like in 3 years later or something. Because I know that waiting lists is for housing and stuff. Because like I don't want to live with Tom all my life, but I'll need a residential stable living place like for a lifetime, and I was just wondering like how do you supposed to go about that, because like I went to so many different sites of low income housing, and there's like open waiting lists, and then there's closed ones, and then open ones, but then it's like difficult to get through because then it just sends you to another lane.
I actually think you bringing that up, I think that's probably something I would add to my recommendations. Is I think you need a service care, I don't know if it's called service care provider, but somebody that specifically walks you through those issues. All right, that they're helping you through that, because that application process can be a beast. It can be really, there's a lot of red tape, and how do I go get this information and that information, what appointments do I need, these type of things. So having somebody walk you through that process, you're more likely to be successful, and so I think that would be really important. And it's not, it's also like, maintaining that, if there's food stamps associated with this, if there's WIC, if there's other related service and support services that are related to this, that you have somebody that can walk you through those programs. Because the application and giving that stuff, typically keeping that stuff going isn't difficult, it's just getting through the whole process is very difficult. So I think that would be helpful.
And again, we can talk about more about this later, but that's the role that, Jessica and Alfreda or whoever else you're gonna have. That's their role. And I think, again, some of these life skills, I wanna talk more about what they can provide and what other service we need to give you to do life skills, but that's exactly that, Jessica, and Alfreda are the people that currently.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Freya, like she's had really bad allergies or something.
Yeah, well, she said there's been some, lack of communication, so we can talk more about that later. I think one of the questions I had is, two, how to, this is a lot of words, and April does fine reading, usually,
You'd be surprised,
no, I know she does, so, that's what I said, she usually does, she reads a lot, so that's not the point. I think, Stephanie, I still haven't gotten clarification if the ruling is that the attorney can't give it to the client, or DHS can't give it to the client, or whatever the court rule is, but I definitely would.
You're talking about the evaluation?
Right.
So there's a standing court order that I can't, I know for sure I can't unless I file a motion, which I'm happy to do, and ask the court that we give it to April. So we have to get a court ruling on that first, and it's always helpful if DHS is not standing in the way, or the AG's office.
Right.
So I think, well, I can do that, and then, we need a court ruling first.
Right. And another thing, of course, I know what the judge's, stated reason behind that is, but, for me as the caser, I just wanna make sure that you're able to get the most out of it and not also get stuck or upset by some things. Cause sometimes, you read something in an evaluation that can feel upsetting or that
I
kind of
don't
thing.
know, there could be anything.
Yeah, so, but the thing to talk about today is, if you can talk about the recommendations as far as April having significant supports and kind of what does that look like is, in the recommendations for, does not appear April can sustain stability to parent her children without substantial supports, and what kind of things we need to make sure those supports look like.
Yeah.
It's too specific, but,
Yeah.
for April's,
So I think-
benefit.
Yeah, so I think one of the things, in terms of the supports, one is you wanna have like your own personal supports. So we've addressed that a little bit, making, a support for you to get the services that you need. Okay, supports that you have stable housing, supports that you have, mental health. Alright, that would be support specifically for April, right? I don't want you homeless. Alright, I don't want you on drugs. I want you to be able to feed yourself. Okay, I want you to get the mental health that you deserve. Okay, that you need, so you have somebody to work with. So that would be really April's supports. Okay, now in addition to that, that might be friends as well. So if you have one or two trusted best friends, that's usually sufficient. Okay, and so somebody that would be there for April. And what I mean by that is that they're focused on you. Okay, their interest is in April. I want to make sure April is functioning the best April can be. Okay, and I don't know, the next type of support would be a support for your child, right? And it would be very similar to that this support is focused on your child, right? They may recognize that April is a part of the child's life, but that focus is I want to make sure that the child is safe. I want to make sure that child is eating. I want to make that child, if the child is treatment services, they're getting to it, medical services, they're getting to it. Like that support system is focused on the child, and they will intervene if they feel the child is in danger. Okay. Then there's one more support system. This is a support system for the family. So this is for you and the child. And they're looking at you as not just April and child, but you as a unit. right? How do I make sure that that relationship is maintained and maximized? I want to make sure that you guys are spending time together. What can I do to make sure that if I have to drive you to the park, if this person also has a child and setting up play dates and you guys are there together, it's those type of things that it's nurturing the relationship you have with your child, okay? And they're focused on your child. Focused on the relationship in the unit, right? So in this situation, then those three people are communicating with each other, all right? And they say, look, April's doing really well. She's functioning pretty well. Maybe the family unit person is saying, I believe that, that they have a good relationship, and the other person says, well, I'm concerned because the child this is going to be a couple of years in advance. I'm concerned because the child may need an IUP in school, and even though these other things are being done, the child's education isn't being met. Okay, and then they work within that unit with each other. Now, sometimes these people, it might be multiple people. So your individual support might be a best friend and a psychologist and a caseworker, all right? Your child's support might be a caseworker, a therapist, a best friend. Sorry. Okay, and a best friend, an aunt or uncle that has contact with the child. Okay? And then the other person, like I said, I gave an example of a family friend that maybe has a child or has contact with you all and the child together, okay? And so if you have that support system, that's usually a good network of people that can intervene if necessary. And so rather than let's say for example you relapse, okay? But your relapse was outside of the child's care, okay? Your child was taken care of, had a babysitter, everything was okay. You go out, you have a drink, and you're like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm relapsing, all right? You contact your personal support. The child support comes in and says, you know what, don't worry about it. The child can stay with me for a couple of days. You make sure they got you treatment, you work through that, and you move forward, right? So that in those type of situations, most people have that in their life to some degree, right? And the better that is, the less impact it's going to have on the child, because now the child, it doesn't have to go to a third party parent for an extended period of time, and your mental health and your substance use gets addressed. Does that make sense? And so we can address the issues very specifically and very quickly, and rather than having things that are prolonged and drawn out. Right? Now, on the other hand, if for some reason you do relapse and you don't return home for several days, at that point, it would be the person who took care of your child for, let's say, the 24-hour intervention, right? They were taking care of your child for 24 hours. All right, now they can contact the proper authorities to make sure that your child has the supports they need, and which is what I would assume you would want. If you're in a state where you can't take care of your child, you certainly, last thing you want is you certainly want your child to be taken care of if you're not there to take care of your child.
Yeah.
And so
I couldn't ever, I couldn't believe that people actually leave their child and go and do that.
yeah. So that's when you say support, that's what I'm thinking about is like you specifically identify, here's 3 or 4 people. These people, and I've communicated with them. They say that they can maintain contact. Sometimes if they're of age, a good teacher, a good school counselor, I mean, all those things kind of come into play. And then, with April, and then also with the family unit. And if they're communicating with each other,
So, yeah, and again, especially that's when DHS has what we call an in-home safety plan or anything, that's where we have, safety service providers who, that's their role. And then usually we have people in home as well as these other, so I don't know how much of that you feel like would need to be in the home regularly, for the smaller things, or that sounds more like just a real stable stable network that's not necessarily in-home.
So that would be the stable network. The in-home stuff would probably be necessary maybe at the beginning. And then you kind of assess, and it's difficult for me to know now
Right.
what you're going to be functioning at in 5 years, right? And so initially, typically the natural step up is when we're looking at, if you're looking at reunification, right? Is that there's the most control over the environment and the most immediate intervention available. And so in that situation, that would be, I guess the most immediate intervention, that would be supervised visits at the DHS office, okay? Because you have control over the environment, we can keep bad things out, keep good things in, and intervention is basically right there in the room with you, okay? So that's the highest level of intervention in maintaining that. Then you gradually increase to the unsupervised in the community, right? Now part of that might be, well, okay, now the child's gonna go home. Or is there somebody or support that can either, that you're living with, or that has regular contact with you, that you're, I don't wanna say checking in, but in a sense, it's kind of like checking in on a day-to-day basis.
My brother and his wife, every single day almost, that I talk to them almost every single day.
So talking to them is good, what I'm most interested in is physical contact,
Oh, like face to face.
like face to face.
Oh, okay.
And so
We
is
do
there-
go down there, actually a lot, we go down there every single week, but it's not every single day, it's only
But once a week, so that would be somebody that.
3 times a week that we
And so
go see her.
as long as there's others that would fill in the holes, that's great, right? So as long as you have those people who are there, in the home, and depending on the organizations and housing rules, sometimes you have limitations on who can live with and those sort of things. But ultimately, if there is that kind of day-to-day, that's, and you've gone through the transition of supervised visits to community visits without supervision, you're probably in a pretty safe area of, a daily check-in of some sort, of at least one, maybe 2 of those support systems. How are we doing with April? How's the child doing? How's the family doing? And if at least one of those 3, maybe 2 of those 3 are checking in on a daily basis, that's great. And then that gradually will decrease as your stability increases, right? And so if you're doing that on a day-to-day basis for 2 months, it's like, man, April's killing it. Like, she's doing great, she's even looking for a job, she's hitting every single indicator, and your child is boom, 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 hitting it. And it looks like the 2 of you are doing real well together. Then you start thinking about, okay, maybe we don't need every other day, or maybe every day, maybe every other day, or every 3rd day, or once a week, right? Or phone calls and that's where, you're being honest, I'm having a rough day. Okay, you're having a rough day. Do I need to come by? I don't think it's a come by thing. I just need to talk to you, okay? And then maybe the next thing, now I'm also having a rough day. Why don't you come by? Okay, no problem. We can work it out. And so, and the thing is this is modeled off of fairly normal function. We all have our people who, hey, you want to go get a cup of coffee? Like, it just be nice to go talk after work or something like that. And that's what ideally, that was something you can develop within your own relationships. So,
what would it look like? What would the stuff to get that going look like?
So a lot of this, and part of it would be referrals. If you're talking about professionals, just like therapists and those type of things, that would be referrals. Other parts of this is connecting with different type of groups.
So when there's referrals being made, why can't the referrals be made in connections with CPS worker and then the person, and then they meet me instead of them not calling me over the phone? It seems like sometimes my phone's off or something, and I don't get the message or anything, instead of then after contacting me.
Well, okay, so there's a couple of things I would say. I mean, one thing would be good is, do you have an email address?
Well, I do, yeah.
Okay.
And I would check that every day.
Okay, so that would be probably, so if, if there's an email or phone message, or if you're worried about that, maybe just adjusting and saying, hey, can we do it through email instead? Alright, and then there's a timestamp, you have the confirmation, and you get the email. And then you go through it and it's like, oh, this caseworker or this person support contacted me, I'll give them a call back, and you call them back. That's possible. Texting, usually text or say, so texting kind of helps as well.
And I think this might work under something to work on with the life skills,
Yeah,
as far as keeping communication
Precisely.
and making sure that,
yeah, so this is.
So
It's traumatizing, it's really traumatizing when you talk to people sometimes and stuff. It's just like, you just don't know what's gonna be happening, and I don't like not knowing, like walking through something and not knowing what's gonna happen.
And that's where I think your individual therapist and life skills worker will come into play. So when we're thinking of the therapeutic component of it, that's between you and that person, okay? I do think that you need somebody who you can, it's not just vent to, okay? But it's vent and then you get some feedback, like, hey, April, you're being a little bit dramatic today, that sort of thing. It's not unreasonable for DHS to contact you and say, and check in, all right? So how can we approach this that makes it work for you and makes it work for your child? If you role play, maybe you go through some things, maybe they contact, support, and then they're like, hey, make sure you're there at the meeting so that she has the support that she needs. Like that stuff would be ideal for you, and I think that would benefit you most. Okay.
because I noticed, and I don't know if you even recommended it in the actual, report. So you're recommending therapy not because, there's a diagnosis or anything, but just more for her personal well-being and being able to function and have, as part of the support team.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Did I say it right?
That's correct. So there is a type of therapy. It's not exactly what you need. That's why I didn't recommend it.
Okay,
But there's a therapy called solution-focused therapy. Solution-focused therapy is a type of therapy that you have a problem and we're just addressing that one problem. And that problem is very specifically defined. I need a job. Okay, we're gonna work on how to problem solve that one problem, right? And you go through it. Now, that method of a very concrete method is ideal for you, all right? But I think you need something a bit more broad than that and say, I've got more than one problem, right? I want somebody there that can do that method over a course of a lot of different things in my life, okay? And so that's really the focus of it. So I didn't recommend solution focus because solution focus is you go in and usually it's 2 or 3 sessions. Like we're gonna go through one problem and you just focus on it. When you're done, good job, treatment's done.
It's weird how I can I can solve different kind of problems, but then some of the problems it seems like it's like there's no way of solving
And that's where I think having that person in there, that therapy person in
it
there,
helps you
will
deal
help.
with that frustration.
And because we all get frustrated, so it's like, how do we deal with this frustration?
it.
And
I don't show too much emotion when I get really frustrated or something. I don't get like what outrageous like my kid's dad or something. I don't act like that. That's out of control right
so
there.
that's another type of frustration.
For sure.
Yeah, but so there are specific methods that some therapists can teach you, when you are feeling therapy. One intervention of addressing mild and moderate frustration is you have a rubber band around and you snap it when you start getting frustrated. Now what happens is you focus on this and it snap, right? What that does is it in a way it distracts you from the content of what is frustrating you and focuses you on the rubber band. I need to snap. 1, 2, 3, snap. 1, 2, 3, snap. 1, 2, 3, snap. Okay? So it disconnects you from, let's say, for example, it's the father, right? I can't stand this guy. Okay? And every time I'm in his presence, I get frustrated. So it would disconnect you from him. It was going 1, 2, 3, snap. 1, 2, 3, snap. And you can you can get pretty good where you.
I don't plan to be with anybody. I just decided that I'm gonna be a single mom for the rest of my life, and then I don't need really someone else to be part of that life. Like, as long as my kids have their dads, okay, you know. But other than that, I think I'm good for just being by myself with my kids.
Yeah.
Because there won't be no one to argue with, you know. There's nothing to play in the part of where, you know, that me and my kids, okay.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing more.
And the focus of this would be, it's a very concrete intervention for her, for you, so that you have something to go to if you are frustrated. So in treatment terms, you know, oh, I'm gonna go see, I'm gonna have to go meet my CPS worker, and she just gets on her knees. All right, okay, that's somebody that you know you're gonna be frustrated with. All right, and then you practice, here's some techniques that you can do while you're doing, maybe it's rubber banding, maybe it's counting. All right, maybe you feel like you get very, very anxious and you forget to say what you want to say, or you say something you want to say, but it comes out very much not the way you wanted it to. And so these are things that you can anticipate that type of intervention and address that. That's the type of therapist I think you need. All right, that we're going to talk about people who frustrate you, or situations in which you struggle, or you need advice, or you need a step-by-step plan on how to get through things, and you have that kind of problem-solving focus, very concrete, but somebody who's going to kind of be there long-term for you.
And I know that I have some problem solving problems, you know, but it's not every single problem. It's just like the extreme ones that, just like this whole entire thing, just trying, because you asked me how to solve a problem of a broken gemstone or something. I'll just go get some sandpaper and I'll go sand that up and polish it up and everything, and put it into a setting and set it right up and go through every single step and make a beautiful jewelry, like rings or anything, pendants. But then for a different kind of problem solving, you know, to get through step by step of going through
Like paying a bill or something?
Huh?
Like paying a bill, necessity.
Well,
no, not that.
but what I hear
Yeah.
but what I hear you saying is that, I mean, correcting or fixing a gemstone or jewelry or something is something that you're typically pretty comfortable with and confident with doing, right? So
Well, not in the beginning. Not in the beginning. I wasn't.
But you have to
but then-
learn it.
Yeah, so then
Exactly.
I had to retain a lot of that information and the stones names and the kind of wiring to use, because I'm into, like, I even want to learn how to melt gold and silver. No matter what, I know if it goes up too high, you can disintegrate it and make it disappear.
Yeah.
For gold.
And so that's where I think that type of practice is where would be good, and so that's where the intervention and that type of
Right,
support.
so you have the life skills that's kind of more systematic, you know, we're working on this, and then the therapist who's kind of, as she comes up to things, is
Yeah.
helping problem solve, and again, that emotional
And not
piece
being
too.
such a
I'm sure.
random person, right? Randomness. I hate random. I hate being random sometimes, because sometimes just things that pop in my head. That's what one of my foster parents said before, that people, you're just a random, you talk about whatever, random person.
Yep, that's the thoughts that going all over the place. So
Anything could happen. It's like, oh, look at that, it's a cow that looks like it's dying or something, but it's actually just laying down, because I didn't know that cows actually laid down and sleep before. You remember that? Too terrible.
Right. Well, I think that's. I mean, ultimately, I'll say that one other thing, just as we close here, I was just looking at the testing here, and, you know, one of the reasons I didn't diagnose with borderline personality disorder.
Oh, that's what I was
Excuse me.
about to just say.
No,
I was
sorry.
about to tell you. I was gonna say what you diagnosed me as borderline personality
No, no, no.
disorder. I was
Borderline-
about to say. I was like,
Borderline intellectual functioning.
oh, okay.
I was just talking about another case just before this that had that issue,
Yeah.
so that's why it's in my mind. The reason is because the IQ testing, you scored really low in one area, working memory, right? And that's consistent with
I'm cognitive.
ADHD, alright? Whereas the other areas you scored within the average or below average range. And so you have one real, I'll give you an example. So working memory is that short-term memory. She scored at the 2 percentile, which is a 69. Okay? At 100 is average. Alright, but processing speed, your ability to process is at 89, which is just below average. Okay? So you have a big disparity there. The other one, the verbal comprehension was 81. That's perceptual reasoning was also just below average. So everything else was just in the below average range, and you have this one thing that's kind of pulling everything down. Alright? And so I felt like, and then with the neuro testing, it was consistent with that too. Short-term memory and the executive function was good. That's why I went with ADHD rather than the intellectual function. Because I think their intellectual function is better if you can control the working memory, which may be intervening with the ADHD, so some medication or something like that might help with that memory component and the attention, and that'll bring everything back up into a higher functioning component. And so just keep that in mind that if you do get on, and I can't make medication recommendations. It's not my expertise. So you'll have to go to a medical doctor, like a psychiatrist or a primary care physician. So you go there, get the ADHD medication or whatever they did.
Is that like at a in Oregon City on the top of the hill? There's that counseling area, mental right by the CPS office kind of, but it's when you go around the
Well, do you have a
There's that-
primary care doctor?
well yeah
Because they can help recommend you to a psychiatrist that your insurance takes, or if you get into a therapy group that has a psychiatrist. So there's more than one way to do it. We can definitely talk about that. How to, and talk with Jessica. And
Yeah,
kind of
so
talk
bring
with-
that up today in that meeting about the services that you're looking for. Say, look, I need to speak to somebody to get prescription. So either your primary care physician can do it, or if they feel more comfortable referring it to a psychiatrist, that's fine too. Either one. If it is just ADHD, typically your primary care physician can feel comfortable doing that. But if they want somebody, a psychiatrist to watch for you, fine. Either one's fine. But just bring that up today because you're going to want to get that set up. Because it may be that if she gets on the right medication, that'll bring things up to here where everything else is functioning. And we might see differences in function.
So we still want all the supports, but we're just saying this is something
The
that can help.
capacity,
Can help.
I love support.
And maybe
I
the
mean-
capacity will increase if we manage.
More
these.
support, the more merrier.
All right.
I think.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you for your time. And did you have any other questions, Stephanie?
One, and it might have been talked about right at the end, I was having a little trouble hearing everybody individually. Sorry, I guess my only question would be, Renee, when and how soon do you put in referrals for these pretty specialized treatment, recommendations, given the state of the world right now, and, I was just curious how quickly that could happen.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that at our next meeting. At 3.
Yeah, and I would say, speaking from my personal experience, get the recommendations and referrals in as soon as possible.
Right.
That way you're on the top of the queue. So even if they can't see you for a month, all right, because of restrictions or whatever, at least you're in their system. You fill out the proper paperwork. You can fill out paperwork at home. right? And so you fill out the paperwork, you're in their system, and then it's like, okay, my first appointment will be October 1st. Great, you already have it set up. Rather than waiting till October 1st and like, oh, my next appointment's December 1st. Well, you've lost 4
Right,
months.
yeah, and then, again, we have the parent support person set up who's gonna,
Yep.
get started in person soon.
Yep, so good stuff. All right.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
So, you're good for between now and 3? Okay, and then when we meet at the DHS office, I gotta go over there and get a room, and then.
And did you want me to be there at 2:45 or 3?
2:50.
Okay.
And then, did you get my message as far as the visit being longer today?
Yeah.
Okay, great, because I just want, yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you again so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, that smells so pretty. The kids can really reach the bus though, like that.
They're almost in the free zone.
I know, right? What do you think? They have a lot of little kids. They have 1, 2, 3, 4.